Good morning.
Good morning, Claire. How are you?
I'm doing well. How
Good.
about you? I know it's been kind of a crazy time, but we're here
Yes, we
together.
are. Yes, I was going to say you look great in purple.
Thanks.
Very, very royal. Yeah, we're all doing it. We're doing it. I know we tape these a little bit early, so I know we're getting ready for the eclipse, and there's been a lot in my environment, kind of clearing out. Um, so I feel like it's a little bit of an energetic dismantling in preparation for this newness. We've had floods, we've had fires, we've had broken bones and car accidents around me, around my people, and I'm just choosing to sort of look at it as an energetic clearing out. For what is going to be offered in this, I think, super auspicious time coming up. I think it's going to run from the 19th of April, I believe, till the very end of the month.
Yeah, and then we've got Mercury going into retrograde, which, if you don't know much, I think a lot of people have heard, oh, Mercury in retrograde, it's like this big scary thing. Again, it all comes back to perception. Like, to me, astrology is just kind of looking at what energies are present and what's being supported, what's not being supported at the time. So Mercury in retrograde is, you might recognize some disruption in your communication, in your technology. But this is kind of a good lead into what I think we're going to chat about today, but bringing awareness to it, like, oh, there is a tendency during this time for communication to go a little wonky, for us to be missing each other. So if I can bring my attention to it, I can just be more intentional with how I speak, the words that I choose. If you've read the Four Agreements, be impeccable with your word, like even more so during Mercury retrograde. Those moments where you assume someone knows what you're thinking, don't, like, send the text and very clearly explain what you're thinking. Right? So stuff like
Well, and also don't resist what is. I mean, so I find when my environment seems to not be supporting what I'm trying to get done, maybe the universe is telling me, trying to support me in what needs to happen
that. Right.
internally. And so I might get super frustrated because, my Wi-Fi keeps dropping off and I'm hell bent on, sending these emails or getting this done. It is the gentle, loving nudge that's going, not now, sweetie. And just not resisting that, right? Being in the state of acceptance and flow. Like, the energies don't really support this happening right now. So I mean that's kind of what you're talking about in probably a, whatever an astrology for I don't want to say dummies because that's not a very kind way to talk to
Well,
anyone.
I don't know anything about astrology, so let me just be clear about that. I know this much, so it would be astrology for dummies.
Well, and I know that much less probably, but I think everybody can recognize in their lives whether or not they know what's coming up, right? An eclipse or a retrograde. Just observe your life. What's happening? Are you trying to get it done today? And everywhere you go, the door sticks when you're trying to get out, and then you drop your keys, and then you forgot your purse, and then it's like, you know what? I think you better go back inside and come up with another plan today.
Pivot if you can. I know not everyone has that freedom in their schedule, but if you can, go with
Right.
the energy versus forcing our agenda.
Totally. And I understand there are appointments and meetings and those kind of things, but maybe on those days, you figure out a way to be a little more gentle with yourself. Don't bite off the biggest bite that day. Like, what can I move aside until the energies are supporting this. But
Yeah.
that does,
So
yeah,
go ahead.
does go to what we were going to talk about, being unconscious or conscious consumers and or creators. So if I am an unconscious consumer, believe it or not, then I'm unconsciously creating, because that which I'm consuming, I become, I merge with, and then I do embody and emanate some of that energy. And so then my creations might be a little wonky, right? If I'm not consciously considering that which I bring into my field. And so,
Okay, let's break that down. Okay, so say that again. You said, the importance of being a conscious consumer and then also a conscious creator. I can't remember exactly what you said, but
yeah, so if I am consciously consuming information, energy, and energy in forms of everything, right? Like food, television programs, books. I mean, everything. Emotions of others. I'm consuming other people's emotions. So energy, right? If I am unconsciously consuming, that which I will create will be unconscious as well, because what I am consuming, unconsciously I am becoming.
yeah. And then putting out into the world. What you're taking in ends up being what you're putting out.
Yes.
It reminds me of like just growing up, my parents were always like, it was really important who we hung out with, who we spent time with, right? Like the people that you spend your time around, you become them. It's the same concept with what we allow into our field, I guess.
Absolutely. And if we think of ourselves as, a sort of a divine, I'd like to think of us as a divine, organic, quantum computer, right? If I am taking in, quote, corrupted, and by that I don't mean evil, corruption, but frequencies that are distorted, right? If a computer takes in corrupted information, the output is off.
Crashes.
So that's just the way it goes. And I think we live in a world right now that we are blessed with the abundant, quick access to information, entertainment, goods, services. I mean, all of it, right? DoorDash, I can have someone come do energy work in my house. It's just right there, right there, right there, right there. I can grab it up. But am I consciously, making the choices about how I engage in these fields of energy? Again, whether it's a show or a healer, going back to what we talked about. So there's a lot to say.
Yeah, so let's just kind of give some everyday examples, because I'm thinking, okay, what are the things that are in my field every day? It's what I'm consuming physically, so my food and beverage, right? Which we kind of talked about the first episode, but we could talk about what conscious eating looks like, and then also I'll just say social media content. Like, how do we consciously consume social media content? And if I could speak to that first, I've noticed as I've curated my feed, right? I don't follow the things that bring death and destruction into my life. So you may judge this, but I don't follow any news. I don't follow anyone whose message doesn't bring light and life to my day. So I've even, stopped following family members and old friends. Like, I have not been shy about the unfollow button. So now my feed is full of healers and different practitioners people with different views about different healing modalities and different aspects of the spiritual walk. And there are people doing so, like following their hearts, following their intuition and their guidance. And from my perspective, it looks like they're doing some crazy shit. Like, I'm like, whoa, I'm not that weird yet, you know. And I have tried to come to this practice, this regular practice of observing my thoughts as I'm scrolling. And the amount of times I go into a judgment on someone else's life, whether I even know them in person or not, I've just come to realize those little energy drains of giving my energy to, I ingest someone else's content. My brain goes into judgment. Ooh, is this good or bad? Is this right or wrong? Would I do this or would I not? When none of that matters, right? And becoming the observer of my own mind in that, and then just kind of letting that go, like seeing that judgment come up and being like, oh, Claire, like she doesn't give a shit about your judgment about what she's doing. You're right. Ha ha ha. Bye. You know, and just kind of laughing at myself and letting that my mind be my mind, but then consciously choosing, is this someone I want to continue following? Or is this someone I can take out of my field? And some people who have been triggering for me, I've consciously chosen to keep them in my feed because they're triggering for me. And so I can practice. So that was just something that recently has been a little game I play with myself.
Okay, well, and right there, you're having awareness about what's occurring within you, which I think is, and it's the enlightenment means to activate the divine light within, right? So that's enlightenment. Every time I take a look, I shine a light on the shadows inside me, whether it's a judgment or, you know, a constriction that happens. I'm bringing more light within myself. So, you know, we can use the word enlightenment like it's this, you know, mala beads and channeling and you know, saging and yeah, that can be part of it. But it is bringing awareness to what's going on inside of you. So I think about also, why are we consuming? So are we consuming because we're hungry? We're trying to fill a hole? Are we consuming because we're bored? Are we consuming because it's just easier than figuring out what it is we do want to create for ourselves?
When I don't feel this or have to deal with this.
Right. Or I'm not a creator, or it's not, I don't want, you know, it's a game delay, really. I mean, I scroll just like everybody else. It for me is just, it's such a I'm trying not to use harsh words, but it feels like a cop out. It's just a cop out. It's just a cop out. I'm just gonna sit here and blah 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 blah. No, it's lazy. I mean, I'm being lazy. And I think our brains are wired for creation and energized by fresh thinking, new activities. That's what like kind of keeps things going. And I find when I'm consuming online, I don't think there's a lot of dynamic, enlightening interplay happening for myself. It's just like a mindlessness. So how does that impact me? Probably perpetuates a dullness, a little bit of a stagnation, or just a lack of spark, to be honest. Because after I'm aware that when I'm done doing that scroll, I'm not like, oh my gosh, filled with so many great ideas, got a lot of good energy, I'm just gonna get out there. I'm just like, you gotta get up. Just stop scrolling. I mean, it literally deadens me inside. And why then would I continue to pick it up? Is it because maybe there is something new and fresh happening here today? Is it a habit that I've created? So bring that to all kinds of other things. Have you created a habit, an unconscious habit? First thing in the morning, you grab that remote and just turn on the news to hear voices other than maybe your own in your head about the state of the world, instead of what is the state of my world right now? What am I waking up to? What am I waking up to inside of myself? But it's what am I waking up to? Externalizing that experience, giving that powerful energy of a new day away, giving it away, and then being a receiver of information, usually not so great, let's be honest, that's now part of this fresh new field that I woke up with, that is going to step in to what I'm doing during that day.
Right.
So, and those are the things. So me mindlessly scrolling. Do you turn on the news? Do you come home and get on the phone? You just have some mindless banter, blah, 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 because you want to complain about whatever you went through. These are just habits. They're just habits.
Hmm.
And if we ask ourselves, are they serving me? Are they not serving me? That's just like step one. Why am I even doing this?
Why am I doing this? I think that's a great question to start with, because it may have been right for you at a time, and now things might be different. Like when we start bringing awareness to our field and I go to our name, right? Like Vessoul vision. Our vessel is our physical body, our emotional body, our energetic body, our mental body. This whole thing is our vessel. So when we start tuning in and fine tuning it, we do become more sensitive. And I think I've laughed at myself a little bit, because I again, growing up, this is funny, this is coming up, but my parents would always say, particularly with like music and TV, we were not allowed to watch, I mean, anything for a long time, until I got into high school, really. We only listened to very conservative Christian music and the Titanic soundtrack. That was also a classic, allowed. But
Don't get me started on who was on that boat and why. We're not going.
oh no,
Too soon.
too dark.
There's a lot to that.
But I would kind of rage against that idea that what you listen to and what you view impacts you. And I'd be like, no, it doesn't. I'm a high schooler, just like cruising down the highway, listening to my hardcore gangster rap, and nothing wrong with gangster rap, but I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, it's so true, and as we get more sensitive, it becomes even more true. Especially, we know the power of music. I mean, music in itself is like one of the greatest magics in our whole world. So just like thinking about, why am I still listening to this music, or how are you using that thing? I think a lot of times when we consume something, we're going to it because we need something, right? Like, oh, I'm going to try this. It's for pleasure. It's for self-soothing. It's for the checking out, because whatever's happening in the present reality is too much. And I've had kind of this like dawning awareness recently of how often I'm not present. And I feel like there has to be, maybe it doesn't have to be, I'm at a point in my life where if I were to radically be 100% present all day, every day, like that'd be exhausting, and I'd have to like curl up in bed at 7 p.m. every night. There is a level that, like, being in this world, being a human, we're allowed some checkout time, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm not saying this right, but
Well, I hear what you're saying. Of course, there needs to be a respite, right? And a nest to return to in some way. And you said so many things that I had little things.
Sorry,
that,
I just kind of went on
no,
a.
don't apologize at all. First of all, frequency. I don't know when there are frequencies that harmonize certain chakras, certain organs in our body. Organ, got it? That word is not an accident. So also the music industry, and I'm not going to say, oh, the music industry, but the music, I like to believe that everything is a reflection of the consciousness of humanity. So if we go through periods of time where the music is violent and aggressive, which came first, the chicken or the egg? I believe it's a co-creation. So I don't want to say things like the music industry, but there's a lot of disharmonious frequency and lyrics that are straight up garbage. There just have been, I think about my oldest two boys I've got a 34-year-old son and a 32-year-old tomorrow. Happy birthday. And then my daughter's 22, and the difference in the music is it's you can't even believe it. My son, whose birthday is tomorrow, it was Ben Folds 5, it was Guster, that song, I Am the Luckiest, Ben Harper, Diamonds on the Soles of My Shoes. I mean, it was all great. My daughter's music, I personally need a tranquilizer because it is playing and I am like, is someone playing a drive-by? What is happening right now? It's so bad.
Violence. Yep.
It's so bad. And so she's probably the age you were at or a little bit older when your parents were like, what are you listening to? And it is a reflection of probably the turmoil, right? Her turmoil and probably aggression about all the pressures she's facing, what everybody's come through. I don't know. So the music is a match for where she is emotionally. So to play that is an emotional validation. Yes, yeah. But hold on. Do I like where I am? Do I like how I'm feeling? And if the answer is no, not really, this is hard. No, not really, I'm super tired. Okay, I think I need to choose something a little bit different, a different octave, right? Just something different. And at the beginning, it is going to feel weird. It's going to feel strange. Like if you don't turn on that news first thing in the morning, you're going to go, it's really quiet in here. I don't know, this feels off. And then you're going to hear a bird maybe and go, oh, gosh, I've never really heard the birds in the morning. So I'm saying all this because you said a lot, and there's so much that we can talk about, right? We want to go on a tangent about the music industry or the Titanic. But the biggest thing, the most important thing is, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? And how do I feel before I chose to do it, during the process, and then afterwards?
Yep. Well, and it's funny, I just had this realization yesterday that one of these bands that I've really enjoyed, I've seen them live, like at Red Rocks, their music is great. I listened to one of their songs and it wasn't a special song, but after the song was over, I was like, there's just dark energy here. And the music isn't dark. Like it's not even necessarily in the words or in the sound, but something that I was picking up on, I was like, I don't think I'm going to listen to them anymore. Whereas I just saw them like 5 years ago. I'm looking at a picture right now at the concert. That wasn't that long ago,
Isn't that interesting? And it's a loss, right? Like it is a loss. And so just knowing that it's a loss, right? Something that once brought you pleasure, or, that was a fun memory. And it's like, oh, wow, And I went through that with an artist too. And it's hard to sort of hold both realities in my brain. And neither is right and neither was wrong. It
What
was,
both realities do you mean?
well, that I would go to these concerts and see this expression of great love and joy. And what I felt in those many concerts I went to with one guy, expansiveness, freedom, joy. And what I see now, I'm like, this isn't good. And then I'm like, wait, which one was true? What,
Mm,
how can I trust myself if at one point this felt like this and now it feels like that? Life is always changing. So what was once true for me may not be true for me anymore. And it doesn't make the previous experience invalid.
ah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful, because then it reminds me of the Bible verse, like everything is permissible, not everything is beneficial.
Right.
Like everything's allowed,
Well,
but
and maybe
it's good
maybe
for
it
you.
was, maybe it was beneficial. And I know it was beneficial for me at the
Right.
time. But now the same musician, all I can say is our frequencies aren't in harmony anymore. It doesn't make anyone right or wrong, better or less than. It's like something in me feels off now with this engagement. And another thing you said, when you were talking about listening to this music and all that when you were younger, and your parents being tuned into your friends and all of that, if we want to just go back to quantum physics, which I am, again, I know about as much about that as I do astrology and all of that. But I know enough to be dangerous, right, about things. But it's quantum entanglement. So if you understand that when these energies share time and space together, no matter where they go, how far you separate these energy bodies, they're still communicating with each other. That to me is like, wow, when you think about the ramifications of that, right? It's like, holy cow, I really do want to be conscious about what I consume. And it's funny, we were talking before we got on today that I decided this was going to be the summer of no zippers for myself, because I was like very aware that the clothes that I've been wearing for years and years, which is like spandex and workout clothes and, oh my God, lots of zippers. I just don't want to be constrained anymore, right? So I'm aware, like it doesn't make my whole wardrobe bad. I'm not throwing it all out. I'm just aware of how I feel about it now. And I went to the mall, which I haven't been to the mall in quite a while. And I went to one of the stores, at the end. What do you call those? The anchor stores. And it historically was a place I'd had good luck, and I thought I can just get in and out. And it was two thumbs down. And so I'm like, I'm going to go into the interior of the mall now. I took 3 steps, crossed the threshold into it, and the energy was so chaotic. I was like, and that's a no. And I immediately turned around and just left. And but this is years of me now really being aware of what am I feeling? What am I experiencing? In the past, I would have been like, I drove here, I'm on a mission, I'm at a mall, go hit the 20 stores that are in here that might have, yeah, do it. But I was like, no, there were kids screaming, there were, I see so much unconscious, so many people that are just unconscious. And it makes me kind of sad, not in a pity you fool kind of way, but I'm like, oh my gosh, you see the way parents are scolding their kids, or, you see kids walking around like having lots of sugar and screaming. And And then I always think about all the money, right, that we spend as people. All right, consumers, consumers, consumers. I mean, we have become a nation of unconscious consumers. And it makes me sad because I think to myself, well, can they all can they afford this? This woman was opening a store account because she was going to save, like, I don't know, $58. And so they were like or another credit card. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, don't do that. That's not a good idea. But so I don't know. I guess to me, it starts with us. I mean, we could talk all day about, what my opinions are on the shows or the stations or the music, any of that. That doesn't matter because, like we just said, artists we listened to 4 or 5 years ago, whatever, they're not in harmony with us right now. But how do you feel and why are you doing it?
Yeah. And I think there is value when you do bring your awareness to what you're consuming and why, then you can play with the energy and manipulate it in a way that serves you.
Yes.
So an example of that, there are some different breathwork practices in Kundalini yoga that are for releasing rage. And it's powerful. And there's one called Fists of Fury where you're just like going as fast as you can, just picturing that thing that is bringing up rage in you. And I don't, my friend Heather, who's a beautiful teacher, she doesn't play the while we're Fist of Furying it. She plays she likes Katy Perry, Roar. I like to do it to some Eminem because Eminem was like, that was my music back in the day, right? And sometimes maybe my rage is connected to those years and it's coming up today for some reason. And if I can consciously choose Eminem for me to Fist of Fury and breathe it out, I'm going back to that frequency and I'm releasing it. And music can take me there. That's powerful. That's choosing how we want to use the frequencies of what we're consuming, right? So I think there's the freedom in not labeling something like, I'm not listening to Eminem regularly anymore, but I sure as shit love me some Eminem when I need him.
I used Eminem for a rowing competition. So it was like a very long challenge it was like an 8-week challenge. And I was neck and neck with this other guy. And this was the last day. And so it was like there was a deadline. And I went in like a half an hour before the time was up to beat his rowing time. And I played Eminem because,
right?
I mean, it's like, you got one chance. Ooh, ooh. And I did win because that is who I am. Now, I was pretty much disabled for the next couple days because I gutted myself trying to win. But you're right. It's using that. I matched that frequency of just, it is that roar. It's that raw animal. And there is a little bit of grit and violence in that. And I mean, but that competition seemed to call for that. So yeah, that's a really good point, Claire, because nothing is, all good. Nothing's all bad. There's play and all that. And something else you said, I love that Claire's been doing this Kundalini, and I think, I'm an eternal student. I love to learn, and, it's crazy how many just books everywhere. So I think to myself a lot of times, I should be doing this. Like, oh, somebody else is doing this. I should be doing this. And what am I missing out on? And I've now realized this isn't, I'm carrying a lot of fire in my body right now, and I've been releasing a lot of fire. And so I'm like, now is not the time for me to engage in Kundalini, breath of fire. I mean, I'm taking this yoga at this new yoga place I'm enjoying. And some of the practices, I'm just like, no, that's not for me right now. And I know enough about who I am and how it makes me feel and where I am. It's okay that I don't do that when everybody around me is doing that. And even 10 years ago, I would have been like, well, I don't want them to think I'm a loser, or I don't want them to think I can't do it. I mean, I can do it. But, I mean, all of that stuff, right? Externalizing things instead of, this isn't a good time for me to be engaging in this kind of practice. There is so much value to Kundalini yoga, and I was like, this is not the time for you to create more fire in your system. So not right now, Jules. So that's kind of what we're talking about in this whole thing today. I wouldn't consume Kundalini yoga right now. And Kundalini yoga is a beautiful, ancient, energizing, magnificent, magical practice, but not for me right now. So that's after you turn off the news, which I haven't watched the news, I don't know how long. The newspaper, I don't watch a lot of television, and not in this holier than thou way, is because I'm very energetically sensitive. And I'm aware of that. And so if I'm watching something and there's violence, I literally am like, I can't. Like I feel a tightening in my system when I see violence. So I'm like, I don't want that in my body. So
Yeah, and this is something that I've learned through Ayurveda, which is also an ancient system that's linked to yoga a little bit, but Ayurveda, their approach is all about digestion. And it's not just your physical digestion. It's how well are you digesting and processing everything that you're taking in. And on Wednesdays, I'm in a couple different groups online, and it's also the day for my yoga training, and I'm working with clients as well. So last Wednesday, I was on my computer, I was on Zoom for like 6 hours before I even got to my last group, which I love so much, led by my dear friend Michelle. And I just reached out and I said, hey, I was so looking forward to group tonight, but like things are not flowing well in my internal digestion. I had so many different experiences that day that I was still trying to and then we had this amazing meditation during yoga that really brought up some stuff. And I was not in a place to hop on another call to talk about gene keys, even though it was with people I love. And this has been such a supportive group for me. It's not that it wouldn't have been supportive. It's that I was not in a place to digest anything else that day. And of course she understood, and she was glad that I was able to say that, So even tuning in, the body is constantly giving us messages. Is your digestion physically feeling sluggish or slow? And if so, it might be more than just what you're eating. It could actually be you're taking in too much right now, whether that be social engagements, information, classes, whatever.
yeah, totally. And just the I think about constriction, density. So reading dense material, eating energetically dense foods, even working with clients, that's very dense for me. And you pile all that on, right? All that density. It's like, well, it's kind of hard for that chi, that energy, that vitality to flow through your system. And I think those of us who are probably tuned in today, I think we all hold a certain level of awareness when we feel that life force, firing off, flowing, swirling, and when it's just, it's stuck, it's dense. And I mean, it's great when your community and the people you're involved with, whether it's your family, your friends, your place of work, that you can even have that conversation, right? And it's not like, what are you talking about? It reminds me of this, speaking of being aware of whether the energies are supporting something or not. So it reminds me of this time when I was trying to get to a hair appointment, which seemed very important to me. And everything around me was saying, nope. I mean, there was an accident and the road was blocked. I mean, it was just one thing after another. Then I'm, texting, I'm going to be late. And literally, but I'm going to make it happen. I got rear-ended by this huge truck and ended up not having a car then for like 6 months because of the COVID parts, crazy, whatever. And everything was saying to me, this isn't going to work today. And I had a false belief in my mind that I couldn't say to another person, hey, this just isn't working out today, because it was like, well, he scheduled his time. I don't want to mess up, and then I don't want him to think I'm unreliable, even though he knows I'm reliable. I've never missed an appointment ever. I'm never late. But these ideas I have about saying to someone, like you said to Michelle, hey, I'm not in a good place for this. Energetically, I can't digest anymore. I have created this relationship that I could have said to my hair guy, the energies are not supporting me getting here today. And he would have honored that and been like, all right, kooky Julie, I don't really know what that means, but okay, we'll reschedule. So I think that's something to think about too, in terms of, kind of your community. Who are the people? Have you created a tribe? Or I hate that word because it's been overplayed. I mean, I loved it, and tribes are ancient and sacred and everything else great. But, is there someone you can practice with? Like, if you're not even yet tuned in or have, practice in the conversational art of how you're feeling and, what you're picking up on, can you find one person to start to explore, an activation of that part of you? Because it does feel pretty strange at the beginning, right? And I would have considered myself pretty adept at being in tune with energy and awareness to what's going on in my field. And I was still powering through because I wasn't sure that I could go over there and say that over there. So
we don't want to let people down. We don't want to come off as a flake. Like all of these cultural norms that have been, I don't know, at least for me, like when you say you're going to do something, you do it, and there's of course truth to that. And also we have this opportunity to practice tuning in and really seeing what do we need today.
Right.
And I love that idea of practicing with just one person, because when you do it, you give someone else the freedom to do that too. It's like, oh, well, Claire said she was really not feeling it, so she didn't show up, and now I'm not feeling it, so she'll understand. That's what I'm hoping, at least in my relationships, that I'm cultivating by being true to myself.
And that goes back to what we, talked about at the beginning. It's just being aware, are the energies supporting this? And am I conscious of the energies, right? Am I a conscious consumer? What I was consuming that day was complete chaos. It was sirens. And I mean, it was complete chaos. And you know what I did? I continued to participate in an energy field of chaos that then created from that field an accident for me personally that went up 6 months of my life. multiple rental cars. I mean, it impacted so much. It impacted the holidays. I then didn't even have a car for the holiday. I mean, it just one thing led to another. I was unconsciously consuming, participating in an energy field of chaos. I was aware of that. From that quantum entanglement, within 30 minutes, I created 6 months of density in my life. And, some people, you can just say, well, accidents just happen. And, I tend to kind of disagree with that, because I've had many times in my life where I've had an instinct, that I don't feel good about being on the road today. And then I didn't listen to it. And guess what? Something happens on the road that day. So that is a very, not an easy example of being a conscious or unconscious consumer and creator. And just to bring it back to some simple things, or kind of wrap up the first part of what we're talking about.
Yeah, let's kind of wrap up this idea about consuming, and then talk about what we consume. Let's dive deeper into how we create out of that in helpful and unhelpful ways. So,
Okay, so to wrap it up, what are you consuming and why? How are you feeling before you choose or habitually enter into a contract with something? Because it is an energetic contract. So, what's occurring before? Why are you doing it? What's happening during that time? Are you numbing out, or are you whatever, getting a little dopamine hit? I don't know. How do you feel afterwards? So, why do I turn on the news? Why do I eat this food? Why do I make this protein shake? I loved this protein shake. Right now, I don't love this protein shake. How do we shift all that, right, as consumers? And then, is this what I'm consuming, like kind of what we talked about a couple weeks ago, is what I'm about to say going to get me closer to or further away from that which I would like to experience? Same thing. Before you consume anything, right? Energetically, or food or whatever, programs or music. Why am I choosing this? And is it going to get me closer to winning that rowing competition or further away? Is it going to get closer to harmony, which is what I'm desiring right now, or further away? So being a conscious consumer.
yeah, so give it a try. Notice your level of presence in and out, and then come back for part 2, and we're going to look deeper into how we create out of that energy. So
yeah, and what was just offered is it's our own personal consumer reports.
so clever, your guides, aren't they?
So do your own consumer reports.
Love it, and we'll hopefully see y'all back for the next episode.
Okay.